There is a 1-goal lead, a 2-goal lead, a 3-goal lead, and a 4-goal lead as we head into the second leg of these Champions League quarterfinals. Betsy is backing the sides with the advantage. Progression projections are as high as 99.6%, but there are still plenty of other ways for bettors to get involved. Our panel has 2 bets each, with at least 1 tip for all 4 matches. All that and more on today's show. Hello and welcome to the Football Betting Pod, powered by Betting Expert. I'm your host, Dan Jenkins, joined as ever by Betting Expert's football editor, Sam Ingram. How are you doing, Sam?
Good afternoon, Dan. I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Just basking in the news that Luka Modric has become a minority owner of Swansea City Football Club.
That is strange. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what to comment on that. That is out of the blue.
It's not what I was expecting to talk about today, to be honest. But
no, not quite. He is in the Madrid squad, though, so there's a loose link there to the Champions League, I suppose.
He'll have one eye on South Wales, won't he? So, you know, does that factor into the betting at all, or should we save that for the Madrid chat?
Yeah, we'll save that. I think
save that a
Let's
bit.
shelve it.
I suppose he's won the trophy 6 times, so he's always going to be linked to the Champions League.
Wow. Joining us again, Scott Thornton. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, all good. Just hoping to continue last week's Champions League form into this one.
Yeah, certainly. One man on fine tipping form. Joining us again, Daniele Fisichella. How are you doing, man?
Hello. For a week at least. Yes, for the weekend. Three good tips in Serie A. So hopefully we'll keep going in this European pod.
Yeah, we'll see if he goes with his head over his heart for the Inter game. But before that, we'll go through every single game. As I said at the start of the show, we got at least 1 tip for every single match. So we're just going to run through the slate game by game, starting with Aston Villa versus PSG. Scott, you've got the only tip for this one, so take it away.
This is one of the more fascinating games. I've really enjoyed watching PSG. I saw some Villa fans talk about it's the best team they've seen their Villa side play in recent years, which is high praise when you consider they've been slugging it with City, and obviously they've played very well against City in recent years, and obviously Arsenal in the Premier League as well. So the fact that PSG were just able to keep Villa camped in their half. I know Villa took the lead, scored one on the break, but it really was an impressive display. The way they're just able to keep that pressure up, quash any counter-attacks, or the majority of counter-attacks. Really impressive, and they're going from strength to strength under Enrique. But Villa have got to fight here, and I do think they'll contribute once again. So I've got for both teams to score on over 15.5 tackles for Aston Villa. Needs must for Villa. They can't afford to let PSG knock that ball around very much. They need to try and win the ball back. They've got some combative players in their midfield, and PSG have got the quality in forward areas to force tackles, so it does make sense. PSG have fought in the most tackles in the Champions League with 23.62 on average, which is sky high. 12 of their 13 games have seen 16 plus for the opposition. Villa, the lower end of the tackle spectrum, 14.27 on average, but that certainly wasn't a problem in the first leg, 23. And as I say, the urgency has just ramped up a notch here. They're playing at home. They need to win the ball back. So expect tackles once again. As I say, the forward line will come as no surprise that PSG are forcing so many tackles. Dembele, Doué, Kvaratskhelia all rank in the top 8% for progressive carries compared with attacking midfielders and wingers across Europe's top 5 leagues. They really are just players that love to run with the ball, and it's nice to see Enrique's just got them going at their man so often. It does help the tackle count. Villa need to score. They need a couple of goals to even have any hope. I just don't see them keeping PSG out. So that's where the both teams to score comes in. Emery's side has scored an average of 2 goals per Champions League home game this season, conceding just 0.4. They've kept clean sheets against the likes of Bayern. I just really don't see PSG, the form they're in, the pace they've got to hurt Villa in behind, catch them if Villa do build some momentum and keep the pressure up, because obviously Villa play with a high line in their own right. I think PSG just have the quality to catch them out there. A rocky start to the competition for PSG, where they won one of their first 5 Champions League games. Since then, they're averaging 3.13 goals per Champions League game, failing to score in just one of those 8 matches, which was against Liverpool. And I'm sure we'll all agree that they should definitely have scored in that game against Liverpool, and they've remedied it at Anfield anyway. So I just see both teams scoring. Villa are a good team in their own right. PSG have proven to be a fantastic team in recent weeks, in the Champions League in particular. I think we're all guilty of patching over what they accomplished in League One, but the way they handled Liverpool, who were the Champions League favourites at that time, and I just see them going to Villa and grabbing a win, to be honest, but both teams will score.
Yeah. Betsy certainly agrees with that. Projected goal totals for this match: 1.04 for Aston Villa, 1.44 for PSG. Betsy currently giving PSG a 95.3% chance of progressing, 4.7% for Aston Villa. So certainly favouring the French side. And like, if Villa are going to get through, Scott, obviously they will need to get a couple of goals. Betsy predicts them to get at least one. Their home form will give them a little bit of hope, won't it? But how does that late 90th minute goal for Nuno Mendes in the first leg affect this tie, and how does it affect this bet? Because if PSG get the first, will that just push all hope, all sort of momentum outside away from Aston Villa, and potentially just deflate them, and PSG can just hit as many as they want?
I think the first goal is massive in terms of the tie as a contest. But if PSG were to score early, you're not going to see Villa go flat because the atmosphere will be electric anyway. They'll be delighted to be back in the Champions League. This is one of those games that they're against a very, very good team. So my opinion on this isn't so much against Aston Villa. It's just really supporting how well PSG have done of late. So I don't see Villa being toothless if they did concede early. Obviously, the third goal was a real killer blow, to be honest. But PSG were good value for it. I think they racked up 29 shots in the first leg. They won't quite get that many here because they are going to be more willing to absorb a little bit of pressure, more passive. But they've just got too much quality to not get on the score sheet. And Villa simply have to get on the score sheet. And they've got quality in their own right. The likes of us, like Rashford. Rashford will play. And he's looked very sharp for Aston Villa. And he's got the pace to hurt. PSG will play with a high line once again. That's going nowhere. So I just think there's space to be exploited for both teams. We should see another decent game of football. The first one, although PSG were very much in the ascendancy, was an intriguing watch, and I think this one will be as well.
Yeah, Rashford has previous against PSG. He's got some big goals against him in the past for Manchester United. But Villa really need to score early, don't they? They've only scored in the first half in one of their 5 home matches in the Champions League this season. And you'd imagine if they don't do that, if they fail to do that again in this one, they won't be going through. Sam, Daniele, any thoughts on this match? Maybe not from a betting perspective, but just from a more general point of view.
No, I think goals. I think goals is the line here. Both team to score over 2.75 goals, which is a bet that has won in 3 away matches of PSG so far. It's very difficult for Aston Villa to overturn such a deficit, but not impossible. It's happened already 9 times. Teams that face a 2-goal deficit in the second leg playing at home, so it's not impossible. Of course, Paris Saint-Germain have been already knocked out, being in the position by Chelsea in 2013, 2014, and Man United, as you rightly mentioned, 18, 19. But is this Aston Villa capable of doing such a big comeback? They've only done it once in the history, and that was in 2002 in the Intertoto Cup when they beat Zurich 3-0 at home after a 2-0 defeat away from home. But of course, historical heads-to-heads can't count up to a point. What counts most is that Paris Saint-Germain dominated the first leg. They had 11 shots on target. Villa haven't faced so many shots on target in the competition. They conceded an expected goals of 197, the second highest tally. And as Scott rightly said, I think PSG are going to approach this and play exactly the same way as they did at Anfield. When Aston Villa hosted Bayern Munich earlier in the competition, they were 445 for a win. It was a hard-fought win in the second half, but they only had 1 shot on target. Now they're 338 for a victory against PSG, who's arguably stronger and much more confident than Bayern Munich back then, and also a PSG that has rested at the weekend because there was no Ligue 1 game for them. So for me, really, back in the host to win, it's very risky. Back in the host with a positive Asian handicap, it's also very risky. I would go for goals here.
Yeah, I totally agree with the guys. Can we just take a second to talk about that Kvaratskhelia goal? Kind of rolling the ball.
Not good enough for Napoli then. Couldn't wait to sell him, but yeah.
Yeah, seemingly not, but that was impressive.
Doué's goal as well. Doué's goal, and then he did a little spin in the middle as well, and had a chance to score. But I think the score was 2-1 at the time. Some of the touches from Doué to move ahead of Barca, who was also enjoying a massively good season. It's just a formidable forward line, isn't it? Dembele is looking like Lionel Messi at the moment. So
it's some team like Hakimi and Nuno Mendes at fullback supplementing the attack as well, pinning Villa in. so dangerous in the final third. Like the pressure was building and building in the first leg, and it felt like a matter of time really before the dam broke. But fair play to Villa, took advantage of their counter-attacking opportunities, went 1-0 up, but really similar thinking to the guys. I like the thought of Villa getting something from the game, whether that's a goal at least or a positive result on the night. Both teams to score at 1.57, probably fair enough. PSG has scored in 16 successive away games dating back to a 0-0 draw in December versus Auxerre. They've mustered over 2.0 XG in each of their last 8 away games. So they're over 3.0 Asian goals, which is the line now at 2.07. I'd probably lean towards that. I'd lean towards the game having more goals than fewer. I can't really envisage this being a dull or boring affair. We saw 4 goals, obviously, last week. There's an argument to say the game's set up where Villa are going to be even more gung-ho. PSG can capitalise on the break. If Villa get an early goal, then you would say this is a tie that is not done. That's how the home dressing room will view this. It's how Unai Emery will view it. So they're going to go for it. Villa in really good form in front of a Villa Park in likely full voice. You can imagine what that's going to be like midweek. And so I was surprised that Betsy had this as the lowest projected goal line in the quarterfinal second legs. I just assumed it would be, right up there with the rest of them. But yeah, I've not got a bet in this, but I would be in favour of over on the current goal line rather than under.
Yeah, same. That was a bit of a surprise to me as well. Everyone fantasizes about being a footballer, don't they? Like it's a common fantasy. I don't think I would swap my life for Matty Cash's at this point because that's going to be a tricky night. You got Kvaskalya starting and then like Barca coming off the bench. It's like
He made 4 fouls in the first half of the first leg, which was incredible, really. It's ridiculous. So maybe one to keep an eye on. Again, I haven't actually checked the price. I assume they would have caught up with it. But yeah, that's one to keep an eye on.
Yeah. He got hooked, didn't he?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound fun. Scott's first bet for Aston Villa versus PSG is both teams to score and over 15.5 tackles for Aston Villa. It's at 1.83 with a full unit on that. The other game on Tuesday night, Barcelona traveling away to Borussia Dortmund. And Daniele, you've got the only tip for this match, so take it away.
I'm going to go straight for a Barcelona win, as they did in the league phase when they won 3-2 in Dortmund. They've never been defeated, by the way, by Borussia Dortmund in the history of the Champions League or in Europe. 6 wins and 2 draws. Why I go for them? Because I think the price is good. First of all, it's a bit lower than when they won in the group stage. That was 198, and now we are looking at around 80 with some bookmakers. But if you go on Betfred, it's actually 190. So they got the same odds, almost the same odds as when they beat them in the league stage. And you would argue that game in the league stage didn't matter as much as this one. Of course, the deficit it's very big for Borussia Dortmund. Only one team in the history of the Champions League has overturned a 4-0 deficit, and that was Barcelona in the memorable 6-1 victory against PSG. So, of course, against probably the best team in Europe at the moment, for sure the best attack in Europe at the moment, 84 goals scored, although Bayern Munich and PSG have got a better goals per game ratio. You don't give this Borussia Dortmund really any chances. Barca have scored 4 or more goals in 20 matches across all competitions, so it's not an ignominy having conceded 4 against Barcelona, but what worries me is the way Borussia Dortmund were set up in the way they conceded them. Because they were without Nico Schlotterbeck, Kovacs decided to switch from a back 3 to a back 4. They decided to chase the game after conceding an early goal instead of shutting down shots. And in the end, they conceded 18 shots and 3.67 XG. So obviously, if they do set up the same way, there is no way they're gonna keep Barcelona bay. But ultimately, are they set up to defend? Are they set up to sit back? No, they're not. So I think they reel in chaos, really. But Borussia Dortmund, they only lost once from the last 9 home Champions League knockout ties. We know the Yellow Wall, we know the Westfalen. I never seen the Yellow Wall score a goal. I don't know if you did, but I never witnessed that. And I think the best team wins, as I never seen the cop sucking the ball into the net. Probably I haven't watched the proper game, but I think it's a myth. The best team wins, and the best team is Barcelona. And Borussia Dortmund is a team that has changed the manager. Yes, they've only lost 3 in the last 11. At the weekend, they had a decent result in their Klassiker, but Kobel had to make 9 saves, 8 of them from inside the box. Barcelona have got the best goal ratio in the Champions League with 15.8 goals per shot, so they are much more clinical than Bayern Munich were at the weekend. These are all things that makes me lean towards a Barcelona victory. But as I said, the projected goal is quite high, 344. I don't see Borussia Dortmund outscoring Barcelona, and the odds are so good, and I'm gonna take Barcelona to win at 190.
Yeah, it's quite a good price. I think I was quite surprised to see the prices as they were. Betsy giving Borussia Dortmund 1.39 projected goals, so certainly a threat, and they were a threat at the Camp Nou in the first leg when the XG was quite high, but obviously didn't convert that into any goals. Barcelona projected 2.05, 3.44 projected goals total in the game, which is the highest of the 4 quarterfinals. So, according to Betsy, if you want goals on Tuesday night, tune into this one rather than Aston Villa versus PSG. But I'm not so sure about that, but we'll see. Daniele, looking at this game, looking at the first leg, XG was high. Both teams, it was a combined total of just over 5, wasn't it? XG on the night. So it wasn't as if the 4-0 win for Barcelona was against the data. Any other side, I'd be speaking about how you've got a 4-0 lead, maybe you go and be a bit pragmatic, shut up shop. It's just not in Barcelona's DNA, is it, of this team?
No, it's not. No, it's not. They won't go there to be pragmatic. They want to rack up the goals. They want to get the wins. There are also, players chasing individual milestone. If Lewandowski scores another one, is 100 goal for Barcelona. Of course, there is a top goal scorer race between Rafinha and the same Lewandowski. Look how Rafinha scored the first goal, basically robbed the poor Kubarsi from the first joy in the Champions League. I don't think there is any calculation about that. But obviously, it's a tough schedule for Barcelona. Surprisingly, at the weekend, Hansi Flick hadn't made so many changes to the formation. They looked a little bit laggy against Leganes, but that's Leganes at home, a team that, by the way, beat Barcelona already away from home at the Montjuic. But it's different. I think when it comes to the Champions League, they will be fully geared up. The combined average goals for these two sides in the competition is 405. That justified the very high goal line. I think it's another high win for Barcelona. I'll be surprised if they don't score at least 2. And I really don't think Borussia Dortmund can do much. Yeah, they'll have chances. Probably they'll score 1, but I think it will be another big scoring game. And in a high scoring game, there's only one team that can prevail.
Yeah. Any eyes on any of the anytime goal scorer picks for this game? I know we've got the 3 top scorers in the Champions League. Robert Lewandowski has scored more against Borussia Dortmund than he has against any club in his career. 29 goals in 28 appearances. He's almost scored more goals against Dortmund than he has for them at this point. Like he just keeps banging them in, doesn't he?
No, and his scoring percentage in the Champions League is amazing. He averages a goal every 3.3 shots. He's much better conversion rate than in La Liga. He scored 2 last weekend only by taking 2 shots. So he's very, very effective. Robert Lewandowski is by de facto the best striker in Europe. But, if you're looking maybe to give Borussia Dortmund a little bit of credit, a little bit of hope, Guirassy has had a good season, had a good chance in the first leg. Pascal Gross is returning. He's a very good player running into the box. Again, Barcelona are a well-oiled machine, but they're not perfect in that regards. So you could even look maybe an outside goal scorer, Pascal Gross, I'll say.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the match, Scott and Sam? Any other betting angles you could get into this second leg?
On scores, I was surprised to see the front 3 of Barcelona all odds against for a goal. I feel like odds on for players like Lewandowski, but Rafinha 2.6 on 365. He's scored in 12 Champions League goals in 11 games, 7 assists as well. He's got so many creative players around him and is a creative player in his own right. So I'd look at Rafinha getting some goal contributions again. Is to score or assist price is 1.61 on 365. So quite short as a single, but maybe you could combine it with some goals, but then maybe you'll get something bigger elsewhere, or just to back him to score 2.6. I quite like it, especially as Daniele mentioned. There's definitely a friendly competition between him and Lewandowski at the moment to try and get that top score award.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think Rafinha is a massive price at 2.6. In a game where you would expect there to be goals, 2.6 for the Champions League's top goal scorer seems a little bit big. I was also going to ask Daniele what he thinks in regards to the Dortmund team selection or mindset in that Dortmund camp, because they've got Borussia Mönchengladbach on the weekend, who are one place ahead of them in the Bundesliga, and they're after European places. And I'm not suggesting that Kovac is going to make wholesale changes, but 4-0 down, if Barca score, they need 5 goals to go to extra. So like they're not going through. This is done. So I was just curious. Do you reckon is he going to make a few changes, or how do you
That
see it on that
I
front?
think I think the angle here could be goals in the second half for Barcelona. Barcelona to win the second half. If they already won the first half, then comes the 70 minutes. Probably Kovac takes away a few players that will be useful at the weekend. So then you could bet on Barcelona to rack up the goals in the second half, especially if Lewandowski and Rafinha, want to outdone each other. Yeah, I think that could be the bet. So I think there is a lot of angles, especially betting in play here. If you buy into the narrative. By the way, Borussia Dortmund on expected points they will be fourth in Bundesliga. So if they do finish fourth in Bundesliga, if they manage to catch up, it's still a decent season. I don't think they'll be able to, but it is possible that, as you said, if an early lead for Barcelona could lead into more goals after the break or after the 70 minutes, or a late goal as well. Why not?
Betsy giving Barcelona a 99.6% chance of qualification. If you want to back that, you can get odds of 1.002 on Bet365. Not sure how many takers are going to be for that. But we shall see. Daniele's tip for this match is Barcelona to win. So 1.90 with a full unit on that. Over to the matches on Wednesday, starting with probably the most tightly contested match of the 4, Inter versus Bayern Munich. I'm going to give it to Sam first. I know Daniel will have a lot to say on this, but Sam, what's your pick for this match?
I'm going for Inter Milan, 0.0 Asian handicap at 2.01. So Inzaghi and Inter Milan at the San Siro, protecting a 1-goal lead in Italy. I think it's going to be really, really tough for Bayern Munich. It's also tough from a betting perspective, as you'll see on Bet365, for example. Both are priced around 2.6. Bayern very slight favourites, and both on the 0.0 Asian handicap line. The goal line, 0.275. It's intriguing. I'd typically lean towards unders with Inter at home, but we know these games can turn rather chaotic when one team desperately needs to score in the last stages to avoid missing out on the next round. So the question I ask myself is, do Bayern Munich come to the San Siro and turn this around? I really don't think they do. Like when I watched Bayern v Celtic in Munich, I said to myself at the time that I would be backing against Bayern Munich whenever they came up against better opposition in Europe. I did so with Leverkusen. That fell flat on its face, but I'm trying not to let that cloud my judgment. Everything went wrong for Leverkusen in that first leg, and Bayern took advantage. They're the better team, deserved the victory. But I have Inter down as the better team. I've not been convinced by Bayern Munich all season, even though they're leading the Bundesliga, even though they're right amongst it in the business end of the Champions League. And also, I suppose I've got the utmost faith in Inzaghi and this Inter team to manage this tie towards a place where it ends up in their favour. Like they can sit in, invite pressure, wait for Bayern to make their move because they're going to have to. And I think Inter should have their fair share of chances here versus a Bayern Munich backline that'll be high up the pitch, you'd imagine, against a Bayern team looking for a way back into the game. Inter, we saw it in the first leg, they can be deadly on the counter. We saw for their first goal in Munich where a ball was sent in from the left and Thuram teed it up brilliantly for Lautaro Martinez for 1-0. That was on the counter, great goal. And for the second in Munich as well, like Bayern Munich were all over the shop. They just went 1-1, just scored through Thomas Muller, and almost instantly the ball went back to Inter's defensive third, and it took 2 forward passes, and Inter then were almost 3-on-1. The back line was so disjointed for that final goal and also at other stages in the game. And we have to remember this is a back four without Upamecano, without Alphonso Davies, so they're missing pace there. Eric Dyer played alongside Kim at centre-back. Probably says all you need to know about, the state of Bayern's back line in the quarterfinal of the Champions League. And more generally, Inter have won 5 out of 5 home games in the Champions League this season. a little fortunate against Arsenal, conceded their only home goal against Feyenoord. They obviously scored in every game, winning 5 out of 5. And I'd imagine they fancy their chances of scoring here too. And if that's the case, then Bayern needs to find the net twice at a venue that is notoriously stingy in this competition. Inter conceded only once in their 4 Champions League home games last season too, and they've only lost 1 game at home this season in all competitions. And that was versus AC Milan, who clearly also play their home games in the same stadium. So knowing a draw or better will see them through. I think I'd lean towards Inter at home under Inzaghi on the draw no bet line at odds against 2.01. And also just keep an eye out for the Inter's plus 0.25 Asian handicap. That's at 1.70 now, but maybe that might drift towards something that's worth backing as the singles. And I've said it before, just to close out, that I'm really not sold on Vincent Kompany. Jury's out for me. Kompany versus Inzaghi. I'm pretty confident. I know who I'm choosing in that debate. So Inter on the draw no bet line 2.01.
Yeah, looks good, Sam. It's worth subscribing to our brand new YouTube channel at the Football Betting Podcast. Got that right, haven't I? At the Football Betting Podcast, just to see the smile come across Danny Ellie's face when you said you were going to be backing into. So stay tuned for that when that gets uploaded later today. Just to bring in the Betsy projections for this match. Inter projected 1.66 goals, 1.32 for Bayern Munich, goal total of 2.97. And Betsy loves an advantage, a goal advantage. Clear. I've noticed that in all the projections we've seen in the knockout matches across Europe this season. Betsy currently giving Bayern an 18.1% chance of overturning that 1-goal deficit, 81.9% chance of Inter progressing. Daniele, I'll bring you in here as the resident Inter expert. Are you backing your side to qualify? And what is your betting approach for this match?
I'm not backing my side to qualify in terms of a bet. My betting approach here leans more towards goals. This is a very tough one. I think this is a tie where the most important goal is going to be the second, if there is any second goal. Because if Inter takes the lead, Bayern will be confident that can score the next one and basically then go gung-ho and try to score the third one and level the tie. If Bayern scored the first one, then they are level, but Inter again will not just sit back and knowing that another goal qualifies them. So here, the first goal really is not decisive as much as it could be in Dortmund or it could be in Birmingham. Or even at the Bernabeu. This is more about the second goal, and I think that opens up the opportunity for more than a goal in this tie. And I think probably for an opportunity for a fast start here. I don't expect Inter to automatically retract and automatically decide not to play the way they played in Munich. They were very courageous in possession. They exchanged the ball a lot. They were also very brave keeping the ball in their own area, in their own boxes, and pass it around and create the space because they have a lot of confidence in the skills. But let's not forget it. If Kane puts that chance away with 0-0 and hit the post, it's a complete different game. We will be talking of Kane having a great night and maybe Bayern Munich winning the game 2-1 or 3-1. So they did have chances. The curious things about this game is that Bayern Munich have got the highest expected goals away in the competition, 194, but they are projected by Betsy only to score 132.32 goals on Wednesday. So doesn't mean that you've Inter and their defense and their organization is going to prevail. But then again, this is you can interpret it in many different ways because the last 2 Inter games in the Champions League have ended with both teams scoring in a total of 3 goals. And if you remember, in that game against Feyenoord in the Netherlands, Inter missed a penalty. It could have been another over 2.5 goals. But then again, if you look at Inzaghi history in the Champions League since he took over at Inter in 2021, both teams to score has won in 30 out of 40 matches. Look at Inter records in the league recently, and they came out of the back of 3, both teams to score and over 2.5. So I think at the moment, because Inter are competing in 3 competitions, it's very nip and tuck, it's very on a knife edge. It is don't take the league form into account too much. I think Inter in the league, after 60, 70 minutes, they go on energy saving mode and they don't make enough runs. They just try to save themselves a spare for these big games. But this is different. And look at the way they scored in Munich against the run of play with a couple of minutes to go. But probably the fair result, let's face it, would have been 1-1. So again, another under. Going to the bet. Too much analysis. I think, look, on betting expert, I tipped both teams to score yes in the first half, which has an odds very high of 4, and that's a very, very speculative one. But for the purposes of this pod, I'm going to go for an over 1 goal in the first half Asian line at 177, meaning that if there is only 1 goal, you get your money back. More than 1 goal in the first half, you win. Again, it's a high price, but I think there is a possibility of a push here. So again, because he's so balanced.
Yeah, it does look like it's hanging by a thread, this tie. Inter's home form in this competition has been exceptional over the last couple of years. Since losing 2-0 to Bayern back in September 2022, they haven't lost at home in the Champions League, 12 wins from 14. Sam, do you agree with Daniele's way of thinking that the first half is going to be quite open, potentially more than 1 goal, potentially a goal for either side? And how does that affect your bet?
I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure because I could see this also being some kind of like a game of chess almost. Bayern could maybe keep trying to knock on the door and contain and keep containing and do a really good job of that. And Bayern simply doesn't find a way through until then you get to the second half and it's still a 1-goal game. You know, if they can't score in the first half and it's 0-0, that's absolutely fine. Still a 1-goal game going into the latter stages. So it could go that way as well. I'm not saying it's not going to go the way Daniele explained there, but I could see it going either way. That's why I kind of stayed away from the under-over goal line because I was really not sure. It was really split. I could see it going over. I could see it going under. So I'm not too sure. But yeah, the reason I landed on Inter was simply because of their home form, like you said. Really, really handy at just sitting in, seeing games out, managing the game, not being overly defensive, as in like always out of possession. Even when they're in possession, they're really good at killing games, killing ties. They can keep the ball out of areas where, you know, Bayern simply can't hurt them. I've seen that many, many times this season alone with Inter. So I'm more confident Inter can get a positive result. So
But
fingers crossed for
let's
Daniele and for Inter.
let's face it, it doesn't happen every day that you face a Bayern side without Musiala, Neuer, Davis, Upamecano. So obviously, Inter have taken advantage of this in the first half, rightly so. I would expect Muller to start the game instead of Guerreiro, who didn't do a great job. He was looking more concerned of defending on Çalhanoğlu. They might have Coman coming off the bench. There is even the possibility of Gnabry having a bigger impact and being played earlier. The last 20 minutes when company made the changes, Inter were on the ropes. I mean, and Muller deserved to score the equalizer. So the pattern of the game, I think, was very, very clear. Olise had a few chances in the first half as well. So yes, I think Bayern can hurt them. But having watched Bayern this season, they are nothing but cautious. But they're not cautious. They're not a cautious team. They're cautious once they take the lead and they establish a 2-goal lead. But they like to go for it. They like to commit players. That's the way company asks them to play with a very high line, which also can be very risky without Upamecano and his ability to win one-to-one duels. So that's why I see it opened. But of course, an 81% chance of qualifying after a first leg, considering that Bayern were the favorites before the ball was kicked. You know, it's amazing. It's an amazing chance for Inter.
Yeah, definitely. Scott, any thoughts on this game before we head to the last of the 4?
I think it's an intriguing one. Usually you would say this type of game, finally probably second leg, would see a lot of fouls and things like that, but it's not really been the case when Inter played Bayern. Bayern are so obviously commanded in possession. There were just 10 fouls in the first leg. I was just checking the referee then. They've announced him in the last sort of hour. Slavko Vincic is the referee for this one. 3.62 cards per game in the Champions League, so it's on the low side. Maybe backing against what would be sort of popular opinion here when the way to go, when it won't be too many fouls. The free kick line's at about 29.5 at the moment. Vincic is 22.88 fouls per game in the Champions League. Obviously, you have to factor in offsides as well, but it does look a little on the high side if the the game state really doesn't play into it. Obviously, a slow start would be ideal for that kind of bet. But yeah, maybe sort of a lot of possession for Bayern, dragging that free kick countdown.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. For Inter versus Bayern, we have two bets. Sam Ingram has gone for Inter Milan +0 in the Asian handicap market. That's a 2.01. If the match ends in a draw, then you'll get your stakes back. Daniele Fisichella has gone for over 1 goal in the first half Asian line. That's a 1.77, 1 full unit on each. Over to the final match of the 4. Kicks off at the same time, but it's the final one we're covering. Real Madrid versus Arsenal. Scott, I'll throw it over to you first. Talk us through it.
Yep, so I'm going to back over 31.5 tackles in the match and under 34.5 shots. So popular opinion here is that Real Madrid are going to steamroll Arsenal. They obviously have the quality to throw bodies forward, but I just think that shot line is a little bit too high. Arsenal, there's no real need for them to come forward and contribute a great deal to that shot count. Real, okay, they're capable of getting, they've had 26 shots off at home against Dortmund this season in the Champions League, but Arsenal are far more streetwise really than Dortmund. They've got the physical prowess to keep Real at bay. So while they will have to absorb pressure, I think Arsenal are good enough to do that in a way that just doesn't mean that Los Blancos are peppering the shots away for 90 minutes. But first, we'll go into the tackles and I'll delve into the shots a little bit more. Of course, Real Madrid are going to be on top. Real matches this season in the Champions League are averaging 33.08, but because they need to rush and win the ball back, I can see that going even higher. The first leg was quite tame. A timid performance from Real Madrid didn't help. 27 tackles, but I'm expecting that trend to completely go here. Arsenal matches 31.55 tackles, so marginally over what I'm asking. But again, there's so much potential for this getting frantic, particularly in the latter stages if Real do manage to get a goal. There were 40 tackles in normal time of the second leg of the Madrid derby in the last round. We can't really look at Arsenal's second leg because the game was over by the time they went to the Emirates to face PSV. But really just seeing how these games can turn out at this stage of the competition. Last season, obviously, Arsenal faced Bayern at this phase of the competition. There were 33 tackles in their second leg, so a little on the low side, but still above the 31.5 here. Just the fact that we've got so much attacking quality on the pitch. Real, this could really be their season. Ancelotti is facing a lot of pressure. He's a great manager in his own right, but will he be there next season? This game, it's going to have a massive impact on that. So I think just got to really fire up the troops and the tackle numbers will soar as a result. But then we're kind of slightly contradicting there because firing up the troops implies that they're going to go and get the job done and hammer Arsenal. I just think Arsenal are good enough to avoid being overrun for the full 90 minutes. They're good on the ball. They're good at playing through the press. They've got the physical prowess to deal with set pieces. Of course, Real could easily get 25 shots here. But then do you see Arsenal getting 10 to exceed the 34.5 shot line? I probably don't, to be honest. I think Arsenal have done what they need to do in terms of attacking output. Okay, if the opportunities arise, they're going to get chances. The numbers look very, very low in Arsenal games, which is worth noting. Their Champions League matches, for example, have seen 22.64 shots on average, and there's been 29 shots or less in all 5 of their away games in the Champions League, which see around 22.6 on average. 22.6 is so far below 34.5. Okay, it's Real Madrid. Okay, they've got a massive job to do and they can hit 25 shots. But I just think that the shot line is a little too high. So I've gone a little bit higher on the shot line and a little bit lower on the tackle line. But together they meet quite nicely for an even money bet that I'm happy with.
Yeah, very interesting one. This second leg, Arsenal obviously have the 3-0 advantage from the first leg. Betsy projecting 1.55 goals for Real Madrid, 1.11 for Arsenal. So goal total of 2.67, and both seems to get on the score sheet. Betsy giving Arsenal a 92% chance of progressing to the semi-finals. Sam, what do you think of Scott's bet first and foremost, but then maybe lead on to yours and whether it goes along with what Scott thinks?
Yeah, don't mind Scott's bet at all. Obviously, I'm not usually one to delve into the prop markets, but what he's saying sounds absolutely bang on. Really difficult game to predict, I think, given what we saw last week. I've ended on Real Madrid win at 1.7. That's at William Hill. But we saw last week that the market really does like Arsenal, considering the data behind them this season in the Champions League. They kicked off at evens in the first leg with kickoff approaching. So Real Madrid might drift here. I think maybe the market might like Arsenal on the plus 0.75 line. So this 1.7 price might get a little bit bigger before kickoff. The only game Arsenal have conceded over 2.0 XG this season was against Man City at the Etihad when they were down to 10 men. Last season in 2023-24, only one fixture saw Arsenal concede more than 2.0 XG, and that was versus Spurs in a 2-2 at the Emirates. And the last time Arsenal conceded more than 2 goals in a match was versus Luton Town last campaign on the 5th of December 2023. So Arsenal should and will be confident that they can limit Real Madrid. What Real Madrid need to do against a really solid defensive outfit, which is chopped and changed in terms of personnel, but it's one that did perform well in the first leg. What they need to do, the size of the task ahead of them to qualify, I think it's huge. Arsenal have to probably ride out an initial 10 to 15 minute storm that is going to head their way at the Bernabeu. If you do that, settle the crowd down, put a nice chunk of doubt in their minds that 3-0 is maybe a hurdle too big to overcome, and I think they should be okay. And on that, actually, quite a good alternative bet is Real Madrid or Arsenal goal kicks and Real Madrid corners on Bet365 in the first 10 minutes. I think it's 1.8 for a single corner. Goal kicks around 1.53, so that can be paired quite nicely with something else in a bet builder. I'm expecting early Real Madrid pressure. We should see that. But I think to qualify, maybe it's a step too far. And the 6.50 price to qualify, I don't think that really represents how unlikely it is for them to score at least 4 goals without reply in 120 minutes, or to win by a 3-goal margin plus a penalty shootout win. Like at 6.5, that's something I would stay away from. If you would like to take a punt on Real Madrid because they've done this thing before in the competition, then I would maybe go towards maybe a 3-0 Real Madrid win. That's at 12-1 if you want something bigger to cheer on. That's pro Real Madrid. But for me, Dan, I'm just going to take him to win the game at 1.7. You can get that 1.72 on the exchanges right now. Real Madrid clearly have to win the game. They score goals at home. They've scored in 17 consecutive home matches, and we've seen them do the unexpected so many times in this competition. And the most important aspect of being pro Real Madrid is that Arsenal fans, supporters, higher ups, everyone involved with the club would take a 2-0 defeat right now. So that makes a Real Madrid win really inviting. We've said this a lot of times on this Champions League show. When teams are in this position, they take a defeat, a 2-0 defeat right now, shake hands, etc. But it's true, and it makes a Real Madrid win an inviting one. It's a spot that I feel comfortable in, albeit there are signs that Real Madrid are starting to wobble at a time in the season where they usually kick on. And their first leg defeat was the 5th game they've lost in the Champions League this season, which actually matches their most losses in a single edition of the competition ever. So there is reasons to doubt Real Madrid, but I think I'm going to go for them to win a fixture, but probably not turn the tie around.
Interesting. Very interesting. You said that the market might be market sided with Arsenal in the first leg and might do the same again here. Betsy sided with Arsenal. That was the best bet of the week in the Champions League, and it's the best bet again this week. Arsenal plus 0.75 in the Asian handicap market at Real Madrid. Betsy currently at plus 44.3% ROI for the season in Champions League best bets. Sam, is that a worry for you? Is that a concern opposing Betsy?
I'm not gonna lose sleep about that, but what I will do is I'll tell you how I'm
neither would Betsy, I guess.
Yeah,
true. I doubt she's.
Well, you're
she's
crunching numbers. Get working, mate.
Well, I doubt she's that bothered about me. So yeah, it works both ways. But yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to wait for 1.8. If it gets 1.8, I'll probably buy that myself. But obviously, we're on a podcast that's doing this. We're a little bit of time in advance. So it's just one of those things. But look, I just think Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, there are plenty of reasons to be really positive that Arsenal will go through here. I would expect them to go through. But even if it's just a 1-0, a 2-1, I expect Real Madrid will maybe score twice when the fixture just ultimately won't be enough to qualify.
Betsy doesn't take into account the vibes either, does it? Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. When
Exactly.
that Ancelotti eyebrow goes up, there's no stopping them.
Exactly.
Well, I think, again,
Dan-
I think we are in the sphere of the yellow wall scoring a goal. I think it's a myth. Guys, I hate to contradict you, but I think Real Madrid are not at the level of those historic remontada, and the hype around the remontada. I mean, it seems that in Spain everything is a remontada. Even a goal lead is a remontada. They do this season. Atletico Bilbao hosted Roma. They won. We were talking about remontada. It's always a remontada. But with Real Madrid, they're not at that level, really. I don't think they are nowhere near the team that managed to knock out Chelsea and knock out Manchester City in those great fashion. I mean, a 3-0 lead, really, it's enormous. It has happened 47 times. The deficit has been overturned just 4 times. The last time was Liverpool beating Barcelona in 2019. But the big difference with the Real Madrid of a few years ago and the one we saw a week ago is that they were almost non-existent in attack a week ago. They only recorded 0.5 expected goals, which is the lowest on record since 2023. And Arsenal can score a goal. They average 2.5 goals per game in the Champions League. Only Barcelona average more. Is a team that are well accomplished, know the system. Yes, of course, the 2 goals from Declan Rice, they could be a fluke, you like, although, free kick could be practiced. You don't know how many free kicks he has scored in training, and we'll never know. But scoring 2 goals from a free kick for someone who never scored, you could say there is a degree of luck in that. But Arsenal were all over them. They are better defensively. They are better offensively at the moment. And Real Madrid are nervous. Mbappe got sent off for the weekend for a bad tackle. Some people say, okay, it's a great rest, 40 minutes, 45 minutes off the pitch, in preparation for Real Madrid. But in preparation for Arsenal, but I don't think is really ideal. Looking at the odds, Real Madrid are very, very favorites. 167 for the odds. They've never been as short since they lost 3-1 to Milan in match day 4, and that was 141. So I wouldn't touch Real Madrid at all. I think Betsy 0.75 for Arsenal, it's spot on. I think this is a game where Arsenal scores a goal, if no more than one.
I was going to go lead the questioning down that line, Daniele, for you, and whether, if we kind of take the badges off and look a little bit objectively at these two teams, look at Real Madrid in the first leg, their defensive lineup having to start Fede Valverde, a right back. I know they want to push him into midfield, don't they? They have a problem where they want two Fede Valverdes ideally, but if they do push him into midfield, then who's coming in at right back? Lucas Vasquez?
He has another great season. He has another great, a fantastic season. He's also Real Madrid side that is a bit short of players at the defense. The first leg showed us that there are many different ways of winning a football match. You don't need a number 9 to score a lot of goals if you play well, if you have wingers that cuts inside, if you are organized. Yes, I mean, there is also, I think, a degree of episodes as well. I mean, Mbappe had a good chance in the first half, similar to the one of Kane and Munich. But again, good goalkeepers, good defenders make great teams. And I think at the moment, I'm going to always side for the team that seems to me more structured and more organized. And as we mentioned before, I think Madrid credit with luck, exhausted in those penalty shootouts against Atletico Madrid, if not in the 2-leg ties against Atletico Madrid, where they were second best. Atletico Madrid went to the Bernabeu and dominated the possession and exchanged passes in Real Madrid's half. Arsenal are technically a better side than Atletico Madrid going forward, or as good as. So I think they could, if they're brave as they will be, I think they can qualify and not going to lose the game.
Sam, on this bet, you're not expecting. I know last week I was saying that I really don't expect Arsenal to score, but
I remember that.
Yeah. Did that make it to the live release today? I thought we cut that out.
It did.
But now looking at seeing last week's match, seeing the teams in person, not in person, but watching them both play against each other, the matchup. Looking at the fact that Real Madrid haven't kept a clean sheet for 10 straight matches in the Champions League at home. Their last clean sheet in the Champions League was back in November 2023. Surely Arsenal are going to get a goal here. They've shown in the last couple of weeks they're capable of playing on the transition a little bit more. And as I said there, if it is Lucas Vazquez at right back against Gabriel Martinelli dashing away, if Madrid see more of the ball, Arsenal play in transition, I think out wide, both Arsenal's wingers have got the better of their respective fullbacks. You're going to need Real Madrid to score 1, 2, 3 goals to see this bet over the line, aren't you?
You are, yeah. And what we'll say is it's amazing what 90 minutes could do, because everything I read pre-first leg was very favoured in the Real Madrid camp, that they would, ultimately qualify. Obviously, you, Arsenal fan, were saying that you don't see them scoring a goal at the Emirates, and now Real Madrid are being written off completely, that, they won't and all can't get a win over the line at the Bernabeu. It's probably worth saying that in the Champions League this season, they've played 6 games, won 5. They've conceded in every game, but they beat Atletico Madrid 2-1, City 3-1, Dortmund 5-2, Stuttgart 3-1, probably all at the level below Arsenal this season, but they're capable of scoring goals and winning games at the Bernabeu. So I definitely would not write them off. And it's a price thing, isn't it, really? Like 1.7 at the minute, it's short. But we have to come on here and we have to give a bet. But once that ticks up towards 1.8, maybe bigger, 1.9, I think you've just got to take them, because we know what they're about at the Bernabeu. And if it keeps ticking up, then there's something that I'll definitely take.
Yeah, Scott, I'll bring you back in here. It doesn't really matter who wins for your bet, as long as the goals, as long as the shots stay, shot figures stay quite low and the tackles stay quite high. Are you expecting Madrid to win this match, or on the other hand, is this an opportunity for Mikel Arteta to win away at a big team or get a good result away at a really massive club? Because Arsenal haven't had that in the Champions League yet. Something you spoke about last week.
Yeah, I think Real will win on the night. I just don't think they'll get the job done. That's purely based on the fact, to be honest, with logic's gone out the window. But Real are so menacing in the knock. Like we talk about are losing to Milan in the group stages, but there's completely different with the way the Real operate in the last stage of the Champions League. Their last defeat, to my knowledge, would be Chelsea, the last team to beat them at the Bernabeu in the knockout stages of the Champions League. So still that bodes well for Arsenal, another London club. But since then, they've played a pretty menacing Man City. The 3-3 draw sticks out at the Bernabeu with the 2 late goals, and they just seem to. So they certainly avoid defeat, but they've played a Man City side who are markedly better than them and just didn't get beaten. And I think they can beat Arsenal on the night here. But Arsenal absolutely should go through.
Yeah. Chelsea were the last team to beat Madrid in the knockouts, but AC Milan did win away at the Bernabeu earlier this season, 3-1 win. But yeah, you're right. In the
knockout stage is so much different.
It's been quite a while, hasn't it? It's been 3 years. Let's. I think we'll leave it there for the Real Madrid Arsenal game. I think that's long enough of a discussion. Sam is going for Real Madrid to win at 1.7 with a full unit on that. And Scott is going for over 31.5 tackles and under 34.5 shots in the match. That's 2.00. Let's do a quick recap of the singles, starting with who is first. Scott, start with you.
Aston Villa versus PSG. Both teams to score and over 15.5 tackles for Aston Villa at 1.83. Real Madrid versus Arsenal, over 31.5 tackles and under 34.5 shots at 2.0, both of them for a unit.
And Daniele?
Barcelona to win in Dortmund at 190, and Inter Milan Bayern Munich over 1 goal in the first half. That's an Asian line at 177, both for 1 unit.
And Sam?
Got Inter Milan 0.0 Asian handicap at 2.01 and Real Madrid to win at 1.70.
Good stuff. If you are going to be using any of the bets from today's show, then please gamble responsibly, only bet what you can afford to lose. And as I said earlier in the show, please take a look out and subscribe to our new YouTube channel dedicated to the podcast at the Football Betting Podcast on YouTube. We'll be putting out this episode along with all sorts of original and shorter form video content, including top of the props. Which,
we should get one out this week. Fingers crossed. But it'll be a regular feature on the channel.
Yeah. Hopefully.
The names are getting questionable. The
name sticks. Yeah.
Even the debate show of Talk the Line that's pending. I like the sound of that as well.
Yeah. Come on, Scott, don't give too much away, mate. Come on. It's supposed to be a surprise. Thank you, as ever, to Sam Ingram.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott Thornton.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniele Fiscalo.
Thank you. Enjoy the football.
And thank you for me. We'll be back on Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.